Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Monday, June 5th Board of Aldermen meeting. The first order of business is minutes of the previous meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion. It's been seconded. Any corrections or revisions to the minutes? Seeing, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters not on the agenda. I ask that members of the public be called on to speak, and when you're called, walk to the podium, state your name and town of residence, and speak in front of the microphone so that PEG TV can capture your audio for the live broadcast. First, we have Dan Parker, who's asked to address the board, and there's a packet he provided that I placed on each of your desks. Dan? Welcome.
So, on 4/18/2023, I was traveling on East Street in Rutland, Vermont at 11 a.m. when DPW City of Rutland road sweeper was in front of me. He was cleaning where I needed to park, so I pulled over and put my car in park, approximately 25 to 35 feet behind him. He was still moving forward at this time. I saw he missed a bunch of stuff, then suddenly he stopped and started backing up. I didn't think much of it at the time because my thought was, if you're backing up, you can clearly see everything behind you. Then he got a little close for my liking, so I laid on the horn. He still kept coming. Then, by the time I reached the shifter to put my vehicle in reverse, he already smashed into me and started pushing my car back. It was then I jumped out of the car and ran up to his door and banged on it. The driver totally apologized more than once and said he can't see anything smaller than the truck, the road sweeper, as his mayors don't allow him to. The new mayor even said it was the city's fault. On the 26th, I had a meeting with him at 9:30 in the morning. Then on the 19th of May, I had another meeting with him at noon, and Judy Frazier was there, and they were the ones pointing me in this direction. But I called the police back. Officer Carapaz, I tried to get him at 10 tonight, but he was off and he had prior obligations, he said, but anybody could reach out to him. Okay. On page 5 is the original police report. Then page 6 is where he amended it, saying I wasn't following the truck. The insurance company's using that. I was following the truck. I wasn't following. My car was pulled over. It was in park. There's a picture on page 10 where the X, that's where the X is exactly where the back of the road sweeper was at the time. Mr. Pennon said the blue truck that's in the driveway was side the road, and the blue truck pulled in the driveway. He was worried about if he went around the block, the guy would put his truck back out there and he wouldn't be able to get it. That was what he said. That's why he backed up. But good news is he said they're going to get a new truck with a backup camera, which I think is very necessary for it, actually, because he's still backing up everywhere, all over the city. But the insurance company denies it because the back of the truck says do not follow. It should really say something about the guy can't see when he's backing up, something in that matter, so people are aware of that. I was not aware of that. He was still moving forward when I pulled over and I put my car in park. And the estimate is 12 on is the estimate. $5,782.18. I feel that the city should cover it because it wasn't my fault. It was the city's fault. I mean, not literally the whole city, but you know what I mean.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Judy Frazier, Director of HR, to come up and give a report on the insurance company's findings.
Did he include the denial letter in his packet?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'll give it to you. So basically, what happens when we have a claim, when something this happens, we file a claim with the league. Passive is our insurance coverage for liability and property, and they do an investigation. They look into it. If there's any witnesses, they talk to them. They look at the police report. The police report was very vague, couple lines, and he did say that basically he was following the vehicle at the time. He got there after the fact, so he never saw the accident happen. He only saw the car damaged. So the league actually denied the claim based on Vermont state statute. So actually municipalities are covered when something like this happens by sovereign immunity, and also by the statute for motor vehicles. So the DPW, when they're plowing or when they're using Vector trucks or things like that, and they are operating and something happens like this, they're not liable for it. Our vehicles do say do not follow. And he is in this big truck. I don't know if anybody knows the Vector truck, but it's very loud and you can't really hear when you're in it. And when you go to back up, if somebody's not, a good distance from you looking back, you can't see them. So from the report, when the police said he was following him, he did change it and later said he had pulled up behind it. The league found no difference in that, pulling up behind it versus following it. So based on that statute and having sovereign immunity, they denied the claim. A similar case happens if, say, police go to a house, if there's a break, some harmful or somebody's dying, they break a door down, they have immunity, so they can do that to save somebody. So the same thing happens with our DPW in these vehicles, and that's the basis of the denial for the claim.
All right. So we have an executive session on the agenda related to this at the end of the meeting, but do board members have any questions right now for Judy or for Mr. Parker? No. So,
Excuse me.
yeah,
Hi.
Alderwoman Hooker.
Thank you, Judy. Under Title 23, limitations on backing, how does that apply to vehicles like this?
On Title 23?
Yeah.
Chapter 13. Basically, operation of vehicles. So first of all, there's two parts of the statute that relates to us. So Rutland City was not legally liable for property damage because of the operation. The city and the states are covered through this title. So they basically have the right to, move the vehicles, do the work that they have to without being liable. And the second part of it is basically on the motorist on the other end, their liability and their responsibility to not follow and to pass at a certain distance and safety.
Okay, I could understand that, but if Mr. Parker were parking his car, say I'm parking my car in front of my house and the vehicle has already gone by, at what point is the driver no longer responsible?
Well, it's if he had been parked there already, it would have been a different story probably, because he would have seen it and he never would have backed up knowing the car was already there. But he had gone up the street, missed some, and was backing up, and when he looked, he couldn't see the car because it was so close behind him.
Alderwoman Savage?
And so, seeing the mirror required statute, is that vacuum truck equipped with a mirror that would allow him to see?
It's got side mirrors.
Yes. Does it have the mirror extension though that allows him to see?
Yeah, he can see a distance, but if somebody's right up against your bumper. And also in respect to that is we had a witness who saw the whole thing, and he actually contacted DPW and told them that it wasn't the city's fault that he had parked up so close behind him that he couldn't see him.
So the mirror wouldn't allow for him to be seen?
Yeah, Mr. Parker, I think, wanted to respond, so if you could just come to the podium to respond. Yeah. Thank you.
My ex, Audrey Grandchamp, I was going to her house to pick up my daughter because she lives right there. And she was supposed to be here tonight. Her neighbor doesn't like her. They don't get along with her. Peter Chamberlain. They fight all the time, neighbors back and forth. So he's not a good witness, technically. She's supposed to show up. She could still show up. I'm not sure she was working. But, and as far as, I was 25, 35 feet behind him, and my car was in park. Literally. And he was still moving forward at this time. So I don't see how that title even matches to it at all.
I understand what you're saying. So the way that we'll proceed is we'll have an executive session at the end of this meeting with our city attorney and discuss, our options with him, and then he'll get back to you. Did you want to add something?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you come to the podium to do it? Thank you.
My name is Kevin Fenning. I'm the street sweeper operator. So, you ever heard the term if you can't see my mirrors, I cannot see you. You see that on trucks, right? If you, I offered to him, you want to get in the truck and tell me if you can see your car? Because I look in the mirrors, there's nothing. So it's a little car, pulls up behind me. I had just gone slowly through there. There wasn't a car parked. I look in the mirrors, there's nobody there. Back up to get what I wish I do all the time. You can't hear anything. You lay on the horn all you want. I'm not gonna hear it. So, unfortunate accident happens. But, that's where the state is saying, they're not liable because of that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Mr. Parker, I'd welcome you to speak again if you have anything new to add, but we do have to talk about this in executive session and
Okay.
look at our options.
Mr. Bennon did not offer me to get in that truck and check the mirrors, and I could still see the mirrors when I was moving forward.
Okay.
But he did not offer me to get in that truck
Okay.
at all. Why would he offer me to get into a city vehicle? That's all I want to say.
All right, thank you. So, as I mentioned, if there's a decision that comes out of executive session, or if we want more information, the Attorney Bloomer has assured me that he'll reach out to you, or I'll have someone from the city contact you. So, thank you for coming tonight. All right. Next, we have Tom Giffen here to speak about cemeteries.
My name's Tom Giffen, Rutland. I'm the cemetery commissioner for the city of Rutland. And I want to thank Alderman Hooker for putting me on the agenda for the evening. And Alderman Davis sent my name to the mayor 16 years ago for a cemetery commissioner when I made a complaint about the terrible condition of the cemeteries in Rutland up there. And thanks a bunch, by the way.
You're very you worked out well. We're very lucky to have you.
I want a raise. I would like, first of all, to thank all the positives. Tyler Dollins, Recreation Parks crew, does an outstanding job whenever I ask for assistance, and the new city forester, Tim Smith, has been excellent in his tree work. We've also had the benefit of many volunteer groups. Just recently, we had the GE Veterans Network provide over 100 volunteers to work in the West Street Cemetery. We've had both Rotary Clubs, City and South, in the North Main Street Cemetery recently. And the Rutland Moose Club does a yearly project with us. In addition, we've had volunteers in the cemeteries from Rutland Middle School, from MSJ, Castleton University football team, defensive line, Comcast workers, and many other groups working to maintain Rutland's old burial grounds. All at no financial cost to the city, I might add. If I asked the board how many cemeteries the city is responsible for and where they're located, I doubt most of you would know that answer. I'm also president of the Vermont Old Cemetery Association. I have worked in hundreds of cemeteries around the state doing cemetery restoration work in Vermont communities, also in New York, and even one in the Boston area. The municipalities I have worked with have a line item in their budget, yearly budget, for cemetery upkeep. The amount may vary, but is acknowledged in their yearly budgetary plans for the town or city. To give you an idea of other town's cemetery budget, I was working in Bridgewater's Mount Pleasant Cemetery last Saturday. The town's population is 903 people. Their cemetery maintenance budget is $35,000. In Bradford, Vermont, a community that has 2,790 people, their population, their cemetery budget is also $35,000. I have been asked by aldermen many times over the years what my budget is in Rutland cemeteries. And although I'm the city cemetery commissioner, I have no idea. I was told a few years ago I was allocated $3,600, which included the cost of mowing. The mowing was previously done by Department of Corrections work crews, which I negotiated a contract with the DOC department, with almost no cost to the city. The DOC commissioner recently stopped doing that popular program, and the city now has to pay for mowing. And the city was not thrilled. They had to start paying the going rate for mowing with a new contractor. You should contact the Department of Corrections Commissioner on why the program is discontinued this legislative session and request that be reinstated. The city historically has never given its cemeteries much regard over the last 200 years. In 1924, Alderman C.W. Spencer was quoted in the Rutland Herald stating that West Street Cemetery was an eyesore, a no man's land, and that Rutlanders should be ashamed of themselves on the condition. Also in 1924, the Board of Aldermen ordered the cemetery gates be locked at all times to prevent further destruction of the stones in the cemetery. Sad that we had that issue in 2023. The Rutland City reports, which are online at the Rutland Historical Society, will give you more history of the Rutland Historic Burial Grounds if any alderman is interested. The cemetery expenditures of the cities were non-existent for most of the last 60-plus years. In 1950, the listed budget for the Rutland cemeteries was $300. At least there was a line item in the city's report. From 65 to 1972, the city expended $1,800 a year, and I'm assuming it was for mowing. In 1980, it jumped to $3,800. Then from 1983 to 1989, it dropped to $2,400. I've stated in my cemetery report to the city every year on the need for new cemetery fencing at the West Street and North Main Street cemeteries. The northeast side of the North Main Street fence was supposed to have been started in 2019. The large white pine tree that needs to be removed in North Main Street Cemetery before it falls into the cemetery and damages the old monuments. One large branch that fell a few years ago has already damaged the west side of the fence. The crypt in the West Street Cemetery has been in disrepair for decades, and because of benign city neglect, it is now in imminent danger of collapsing. The city needs to address what the plan is for the cemetery structure. As an appointed city official, I am unaware of the existence of any identified city cemetery budget, and my authority is limited. What I am requesting is the city put a financial line item in the budget for continued maintenance of our cemeteries, not just mowing fees. It would also be a plus to see a plan in place with a proposed schedule when needed cemetery projects would be started and proposed date of completion. Would the board like me to submit a budget? The city cemeteries contain the remains of one Vermont governor, 52 Revolutionary War soldiers, 17 Civil War soldiers, including one soldier from the 54th Mass Regiment made famous in the movie Glory, plus the original settlers of Rutland and Vermont. Rutland City has put almost no financial resources for the upkeep and restoration of its cemeteries for over 200 years. I am asking the Rutland Board of Aldermen, what do they want these historical burial grounds to look like? Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Alderman Gillen?
As I was helping him doing the project at Rotary on North Main Street, there is going to be a real problem in the future. There is a massive pine tree which is about to come down. That could be a problem for the rec department because that will fall on the courts, so the tennis court. So I would like to take the whole cemetery issue and put it in committee, in the recreation committee, because I believe you come under recreation.
Sure.
And I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to refer this matter to the Recreation Committee, and it's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? Alderwoman Davis?
Debate, I guess, if we're going to do a budgetary item, though, that would happen
That's
in
correct.
March.
Yep.
Well, I think that should be clear, that the board has no money, that, you know, it would be a matter of requesting the mayor to meet with Mr. Griffin and determine what is the cost needed for maintenance of cemeteries and then budget it into the next fiscal year.
Well, the reason why I put in committee, so the members of the committee understand what's needed there and some issues, some real risk issues that we're going to have here shortly, and we need to deal with that. We need to bring the forester in and talk to him also at the same time and figure out what it's going to take that tree down.
If I may, just.
Sure.
So I think there's two issues, if I may, Alderman Gillen. There's cemetery issue, and then there's the tree. So
I'm putting
we're
both in
addressing
there.
the tree, but cemetery issues is more than just Rotary Park.
That's correct.
Right.
Alderwoman Hooker?
To that point, the mausoleum that Mr. Giffen was talking about is a real safety issue. I mean, the stones are falling, and unfortunately, people go into that cemetery, especially young people, I think, and, you know, that could be a real hazard and a real safety issue.
Alderman McCann? Thanks. I think I heard you say that you might be willing to put together what would be sort of a framework of a budget if we took kind of the work that you think we have to do to maintain them on a yearly basis and kind of estimate what that would be. Is that something you would be willing to have ready if or when this goes to the Parks Committee?
If the
Or Recreation Committee?
Perhaps if the board would like me to put a budget in, what do I could get the estimates for the fence and the mausoleum and the tree, which I've been reporting on for 16 years, I'd be happy to do that. Because costs keep going up all the time. It's been reported, again, since I became cemetery commissioner, thank you, Sharon, for the, every time I do a report, and there's been no action by any of the board or by mayors or by city officials since I've been doing this. That's why I'm here today, because it's becoming a point now where it's a hazard. I mean, it's not just the tennis courts, it's also the stones, the mausoleum could collapse. I have no idea what's going to happen. The fences should have been repaired back, 10, 15 years ago. So, I mean, it's all, I can certainly do a budget if somebody requests it from me.
Alderwoman Savage?
I know the issue of Evergreen Cemetery is still sitting in general committee. Would general committee be a better place for this so we can have a wider discussion, including Evergreen? Or
I think the Evergreen issue
is it separate?
I think it might be best to keep them separate. But anything additional? All those in favor of referring this matter to the Recreation Committee? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. So
Thank you very much.
So Alderman Gillum will reach out about scheduling a meeting on that. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to address the board on matters not on the rest of our agenda? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to communications from the mayor.
Good evening. Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. My first request is that you untable the mayoral appointment for DPW Commissioner for Bob Protovansky and pass around the ballot box.
All right, so we have a motion to untable the nomination of Bob Protovansky for DPW Commissioner, and it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'll move to circulate the ballot box.
Second.
So motion to circulate the ballot box, and it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Wonderful. Would you mind? So, sorry. So I was waiting on confirmation, and I received it yesterday morning. We are handing out. Oh, thank you. Got it? Okay. I am handing around another mayoral appointment. This one is for city attorney. The appointment is for a woman by the name of Megan LaChance. I'll be sending out her resume tomorrow, along with her contact information. Please feel free to reach out to her and have a discussion, and I would ask that the board table the nomination as is customary.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to table the nomination of Megan LaChance for city attorney. It has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. So I'm got another handout. I'm sorry for this. This was actually supposed to be in the board packet. This is supposed to be in the board packet, but it is on the agenda. So in the process of doing the RFPs for the Alderman chambers, there were 3 RFPs, if you remember correctly. One was for the technology in the space, one was for potential carpeting to cut down on the reflection of the sound, and the third specifically around being able to heat and cool the room without all of that noise that we're hearing outside and an air conditioner that's not working, was for a heat pump mini split. There was only one respondent, and typically this would go to Board of Finance, but the Board of Aldermen can do this as well. I would like to ask the board to make a motion to award this to the one respondent, Bill Lawson Plumbing and Heating, so we can get moving quickly on this.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to award, and it has been seconded. Any discussion or debate? Alderwoman Davis.
Where the money's coming from?
This is coming out of the ARPA funds that we assigned at the beginning.
Thank you.
Alderman Gillum?
Nope, that was the same question.
All right. Seeing and hearing nothing further, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I think we're all uncomfortably warm right now.
Yeah. It's my motivating factor. I don't know the timeline yet, but once we have the bid, now that we have the bid awarded, we'll get a timeline.
Mayor Dundas, I just wanted to announce that the vote came back, and it was 11 yes, 0 no.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you. No, I don't have much to say other than thank you, and it's very humbling, all the support I've had here at City Hall and from the public. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. All right, one more request, and then I'll go into my normal report. So the Agency of Transportation has announced a small-scale local safety grant opportunity, and the city would like to apply for it. The goal of this program is to address simple improvements that will increase safety on the local roadway system. The project should ideally be ready for construction in 2023-24. The small-scale grant awards are capped at $35,000, and the minimum award amount is $5,000, and there is no match, and that's the fun part. AOT will fund 100% of these grants for construction only. So I would like to request that the board suspend the rules and make a motion to approve the application for this grant.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to suspend the rules. It has been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I also have a resolution to circulate, so if that could be included.
So the motion should be to circulate.
Circulate the resolution to apply for the grant, yes.
So moved.
All right, so we have a motion to circulate the resolution of support for the 2023 Trans Small Scale Safety Improvement Grant application for signatures.
That's correct.
And it has been seconded. Alderwoman Davis?
Just a question. Are these projects that will be done like in-house, DPW, or there's things we're going to have to bid out, or what kind of projects are we possibly looking at?
So Commissioner Rotundo isn't here to respond to that tonight. Well, Chief City Engineer Rotundo isn't here to respond to that tonight. But it could very well be a mix. The construction piece, the grant funds construction. So our construction always goes to DPW directly first, and then if they don't have the time or the ability to do it time-wise, then we would bid it out at that point. Yeah, absolutely.
And do we have any idea what we're looking at for?
I don't know what the particular installs for these are right now yet.
Thank you.
That'll be determined. Great questions.
Alderman McCann?
Thanks. So a comment to the mayor and the new commissioner and the city engineer, if he hears this, is I think one of the things that this can go towards is sort of restriping and just some new paint. And we definitely have some streets around the city that the current lane width is essentially equal to what we would put on a highway. So essentially our streets are striped as though you should be driving 55 plus miles per hour. And that might be one quick and easy way to put some of this money to use without having to tear up streets, change sidewalks. We can just sort of add a new visual cue to some of our streets that we want to be safer and slower for pedestrians in our downtown area. And so, again, outside of construction, sort of a quick, easy way to put some of this to use.
Great. Got that? Yep. Okay. Wonderful.
All right, anything additional? So we have a motion to circulate the resolution of support for signatures. It has been seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much. Alderman Gould, if you wouldn't mind passing that around. Okay. So just on a general update, just kind of want to tell you what's been going on the past 3 or 4 weeks. So the hotel housing transition plan I published on the city website a couple weeks back includes the conversation it includes the 2 resource days on the 14th and 15th of June that we'll be having at the fairgrounds. I want to put a big thanks out to Adam Sancic and Project Vision and all of the different partners in town that are going to come and participate at that. We've got a great list. Alderman McClure has offered to help us with the flyer so that we can have a flyer at the hotel so people know about the event. The rec has offered to let us use the 2 vans to transport people from the hotels to the event, which has been fantastic. And there's lots of different organizations that have signed up to be there with enthusiasm to really help people find a path of transition. That is only 2 days long. But the idea is to get as many resources in front of the people who will need them as possible so they can understand what's going to be happening next. As far as that transition goes, just a real quick update. The first part of the transition did start on June 1st. Many people currently, there's a group of people that did leave the hotels on June 1st. There's a group of people that the hotel owners offered for them to stay for a longer period of transition. So we'll still see how that rolls out. Chief and Project Vision team are keeping a close eye on it and keep me pretty well updated, so thank them for that as well. I attended the VLCT board meeting and talked to Department of Children and Families along with the other VLCT board members specifically about this, and DCF at that point decided to take that information and put out an ask. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but that ask was to the communities about how communities can help them solve for the transition. And the idea basically being is that DCF has stated that although they may have the charter and the purview over these health and wellness issues, they don't know our communities as well as we do. So I did write a response, I'll talk about that in a minute, to them as a letter of interest saying, here's something that I think we could do in Rutland, and if they come back with potential, a positive response to that, that's something I'll be bringing to the board to look at, but I'll go over that in a minute. So we also, Administrator Sternstein and I visited Montpelier on Monday the 22nd, and we got to present to the Agency of Community, ACCD, Community and Commerce, and they have approved our neighborhood development area. So a neighborhood development area is an area around our downtown which allows us to do additional development. It allows us to bypass certain things within Act 250. It allows us to reduce permit costs. There are state reduced permit costs. There's even things when it comes to capital gains taxes that are reduced for those who would buy, build, and sell those properties to be able to incentivize development. So this is truly a plan that will help our city move kind of into that infill space, grow those housing opportunities right around our downtown within those walking distances. Can't wait for that heat pump. So that happened as well. And is Tom still here? No, I think he left. But I did attend both the West Street Cemetery cleanup and the VFW's Memorial Day service. The West Street Cemetery, if you haven't seen it this week, it looks absolutely beautiful. The GE was there the day during the cleanup. They did a phenomenal job. They cleaned out a ton of stuff. It's worth going up and taking a visit, looking at the cemetery. A fantastic job in repairing some of the headstones too. They did a great job with that. And thanks to the rec for going and picking up all of the remains and the trash from the trees and the leaves. That was great. And the ceremony itself on Monday was fantastic as well. So what are we currently doing? After that VLCT meeting, I want to come back to that conversation. Chris Winter's memos came out from DCF asking for local partners and municipalities to kind of give DCF a heads up on how they could help in our communities. So that they were looking for a letter of interest is all it really was, a cover letter with a lightweight plan to say here's something that could happen in our community. And one of the big concerns when talking to our partners at Brock and the Housing Authority, and it was that we wanted to maybe do a short-term shelter. And I don't think we're prepared for that type of thing. We don't have the facilities. Municipalities don't have the charter for those type of things. Those are things that our partners have to put together. They have to run. But what I did ask for was funding from the state to help with this transition in two different ways. One, staffing to work, with Project Vision to say, here are the needs. We're going out, we're reaching out to the community, we're looking at what we need from a homeless transition, and I'm asking them for 3 years of funding for 2 staff members that would be able to make those connections to our partners and within our community to be able to do that. And then the second piece is for funding for a transitional housing development, much like we see with Lincoln Place or the bridge housing that both the Housing Trust and the Housing Authority have already done. Now, again, those aren't things that the city would do. We would capture the funding and put that to our partners for those things to get built, but it was a pretty comprehensive plan. I haven't posted it yet. I wanted DCF to be able to look at the letter of interest first and kind of consume it. I will post it on the city website tonight for everybody to see and send it to the board as well. But it is just basically saying to DCF, listen, here's our plan moving forward, or here's an opportunity for our plan moving forward. this is something that we would love their support on, because although we have in Rutland today over 400 families that need to find a place to live, even though a transitional housing campus wouldn't be built for a year or two, we'll always have this challenge where people who are moving out of houselessness into a place, they're going to have this gap in time where they're going to need some stability, some help, maybe wraparound services, all these things that go into getting them ready to move into an apartment or a residence. And that's what this will build and develop. So that's what we asked, that's what I presented to the state, and we'll see what they say from that standpoint.
Alderwoman Davis?
Just a question about
Yep.
the two positions. So those would be funded by possibly funding from the state?
Yes.
They would not be budgetary personnel?
No, they wouldn't be budgetary personnel. They would be funded by the state, and if the state grants us that funding, we would probably place them within the Project Vision bubble, just because that's the most appropriate place to have that. Any other questions on that? I know that was a long one.
Alderman Gillum?
Just one question.
Yeah.
It's imperative, because I was involved with Rutland Promise, and that worked really well until the state took over, and that kind of pushed us out, because we were dealing with working families. We need to figure a way that, you kept saying wrap around. Wrap around to me means we gotta teach them how to cook, we gotta teach them how to shop, how to manage finances, how to take care of a home, how to take care of sanitation, train them for jobs, because we have a lot of jobs that are open. So if we're moving in that direction, all in favor of doing that. But if the state is not gonna move in that direction, then we need to point them to that direction.
Absolutely. So, and actually, just to homeless prevention, and Angus's team actually has some of those programs already. So again, we'd want to expand on those services, or try to learn from them and do something similar. That's great. All right. The 10% in Vermont applications have been submitted for a region. There were 3 submitted from the Rutland region and Rutland City, as we talked about in both here and in the committee meeting, has submitted for $8 million along with our partner NeighborWorks. I emailed that application to the board as well this morning, or it's actually this afternoon by the time I got it out. But there's some information in there. Take a look at the application, and I'm sure that'll be coming back to committee once we get a response from the state, which is fantastic. We have also applied for the USDA grant. Thank you to the Board of Aldermen for acting so quickly on that last meeting. We applied for $7 million for staffing and resources. So again, additional staffing positions, funding the staff that we have to go towards planting trees and keeping our urban forest updated and refreshed in the city of Rutland. So we'll be looking to see the results of that grant. The other thing to note about that is, because we are in a specific designated type of area, that grant would require no match from the city as well, just like Jim mentioned last time. All right, so what we're going to do next, what's coming in the next few weeks. June's going to be a month of looking forward. We spent a lot of time over the month of May really focused on the homeless transition, and those things are in the works. So June, we're going to be looking forward. The underground study is going to start on Center Street. We'll begin as well working on the Rutland, this will be my first draft of the high level of the Rutland Vision document that we want to put together. Working on gathering data for our capital improvement plans. I've started asking department heads to put together their capital improvement plan asks. I've already received some from the chief of police and the chief of our fire department, which has been great. So that's moving along pretty well. And then we also, while we're looking at that capital improvement plan stuff, we want to start looking at the budget for next fiscal year. I don't want to do a deep dive yet, very high level right now, but as we're looking at those capital improvement plans, we can start to look at, in the FY25 budget, what can be in the CIP versus what will actually be in the budget. Because we've been talking about using that 1% option tax to reduce the burden on the city taxpayer, and that's how we're going to do a lot of it, is by moving things from the budget that would be capital purchases into the capital improvement plan. So we're going to start looking at that as well in June. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the Rutland Regional Medical Center and the Interfaith Community Group to discuss the homeless transition and about the upcoming resource days. And then next week I'll be meeting with Norm Cohen to talk about the next steps on the Declaration of Inclusion. So any questions on any of that? Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. We have 5 executive sessions on the agenda, so we'll move those to the end. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Attorney Bloomer.
You can delete one of those.
Sweet.
Yes.
Negotiation of a contract.
All right. Can I get a motion to delete an executive
So moved.
session?
Second.
Negotiation of a contract. So we have a motion and it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, next, reports and letters from department heads and officials. We'll start with Barbara Spalding from the Rutland Redevelopment Authority with a recommendation to approve a $5,000 Business Incentive and Assistance Program grant to Tacitly Incorporated. There's a memo and a copy of the application on pages 1 to 4 of your packet. Welcome.
Good evening. So, as stated, the RRA is recommending approval of a $5,000 buyout grant to Tacitly Inc. And Jeff is here tonight if you have any questions for him with regard to the application.
Thank you. Can I get a second? All right, so we have a motion to suspend the rules, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'll move for the approval of the 5,000 buyout grant to, how do I pronounce that?
Tacitly.
Tacitly Incorporated.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the buy-up grant, and it has been seconded. Alderman Gillum.
This is good news because this is a project coming from the hub area with the chamber, which we invested in as a city, and so we're starting to get some return on this. This is an excellent improvement for us. We're moving in the right direction.
I agree. Did anyone have any questions? Alderman McCann?
I know the project you're working on, Jeff, but how specifically would this money be getting used? I didn't get a chance to dig into the application.
Can I get you to come to the podium? Thank you.
So this will go to build 2 dev machines for our office. We've got 7 people now working at Tacitly, and it will also go into like some HMDs.
What is an HMD?
Head-mounted display. So it's like actually Apple just released theirs today. It's like goggles that you can see virtually. We're basically building like code carts for nurses.
Right. Yeah.
So you'll see a virtual code cart.
Great. Thanks.
Oh, cool.
Very cool. Great. All right, seeing no additional discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Great.
Thank you.
You're all set?
Thank you.
Next, we have Barbara Spalding again with a recommendation to approve Ascend Housing Allies request for a loan from the Maples Revolving Loan Fund. And there's a memo as well as copies of the loan policy and application on pages 5 to 11 of your packet.
Thank you. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, the Maples Revolving Loan Fund was created when Green Mountain Development Group repaid a loan after building the Maples Senior Living Community. And the RRA was put in charge of shepherding through the applications. The last application that was done was for Hickory Street 3, the housing, for $50,000. And this request is for $75,000 at 0% interest for 30 years. And the money would go toward the Hospital Heights rehab project that we are awaiting information on whether or not we'll be awarded that grant. The mayor and I will be meeting with VCDP staff on the 8th and answer any questions they might have, and we should know by the end of June whether or not it will be awarded. And then I just wanted to update the amount that's available in the Maples Revolving Loan Fund. It is $96,913, and let you know that Andy Miller is here this evening if you have any questions particular to the request.
I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Any discussion or debate? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Taddeo?
I'll move to recommend to approve the $75,000 zero interest 30-year loan to Ascend Housing Allies to be used in conjunction with other funding to rehab the 22 affordable rental units at Hospital Heights at 101 Mahoney Ave.
Second.
All right. Alderwoman Davis?
Yep. Barbara, we had a contingency in our motion when we did Hickory Street that it was contingent upon receiving the VCDP grant. Should we add that to the motion?
Yes.
If we could amend that.
Except
the friendly amendment.
We don't need to vote on the amendment, do we?
Yeah.
Okay, didn't think so.
No, I don't.
If the maker of the motion accepts,
accept.
and the seconder accepts?
Okay, you need a second, the seconder to.
Who was the seconder?
I second, well,
We had many seconders, so.
Doesn't sound like anyone.
Everybody accepts.
Wait a second.
Great. So we have a motion to approve the request for a loan with Alderwoman Davis's amendment that it is contingent upon receipt of the VCDP grant. And that's been seconded. Any discussion, debate, or questions for Barbara or Andy? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Barbara again with information about the final stage of the environmental review process for Rutland Housing Initiative 1 at 120 Maple Street. There's a memo and supporting documents on pages 12 to 13 in your packet.
So we're not requesting anything from the alderman this evening. This is for public information and to let the public know that the environmental review record can be examined or copied at the city clerk's office or at my office. And any comments should be sent to the attention of Mayor Dunges by June 10th. Once what we are calling the FONSI, which is the finding of no significant impact, and the request for release of funds is approved by the state, we'll be able to come back to this board and ask for signing the grant agreement.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Just a comment.
Alderman Gillum?
All these things, so people know what we're doing at home, all these things we've just been working on is all housing. This is a crucial point for us to move this stuff forward. So I'm very happy that we're moving in that direction.
Alderwoman Hooker.
Could I just ask Ms. Spalding to define notice of finding of no significant impact?
Okay, so the applicant, the Hales, or the Rutland Housing Initiative 1, had to go through a very extensive environmental process. And after that process was done, it was determined that there was no significant impact to the area or the neighborhood, or the plans that they are going to do at 120 Maple Street. So that's the finding, and that's what we're hoping the state will also conclude. But it does have an opportunity for the public to comment.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Treasurer Markowski with a request that the board approve and sign the loan documents for the Moonbrook Temperature Improvements Project. There's a memo and a copy of the loan agreement on pages 14 to 29 of your packet.
Thank you. Last year at this time, the board approved the initial loan for this project, the Moonbrook Temperature Improvements Project, for $126,000. So this is an amendment to that loan agreement to increase that loan amount from $126,000 to $168,000. So looking for the board's approval of the loan documents and asking to circulate that document for signature so I can get it back to the bond bank.
All right, can I get a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved. Second.
All right, motion to suspend the rules has been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'll move for the approval of the loan documents for the Moonbrook Temperature Improvement Project in the amount of $168,000 and to circulate the document for the board and treasurer's signatures to be attested by the city clerk.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the loan documents, and it's been seconded. Alderwoman Hooker?
Thank you. Could I just ask the treasurer to give us an indication of why this increase is necessary?
It's pretty typical in a project. The initial, they're just kind of giving a guesstimate of what that project is going to look like. I think there was just some final work to finalize this project that increased it. So it wasn't unexpected.
Thank you.
Any additional? Alderman Kukuli?
So, Moonbrook is a lengthy brook.
Yes, and I hope you don't have a lot of questions about Moonbrook
No, I don't, but
project. But I'll do my best.
But I do recognize that Moonbrook temperatures, et cetera, are very high. They won't support fish.
Right.
And living on Moonbrook, near Moonbrook, I would probably have to stay away from voting, I guess.
Yeah.
All right,
And
so-
I believe this is going to be a small part of a larger project for the city, so,
Out of caution, Alderman Coopoli is going to recuse himself from any vote.
thank you.
I ask to be recognized after.
Okay, you can feel, if anyone has any additional questions for Treasurer Markowski, seeing and hearing none, if you'd step to the podium, that'd be great, and state your name.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Good.
My given name is Michel Messier. I live at 10 Hill Pond Road, right off Combination Pond, off Moonbrook. I've been a resident there for 20 years. I've been a resident of City of Rutland since 1963, basically, more or less. So that having been said, I went to the last meeting on Moonbrook. Here's the issue. Where the temperature was taken, the water comes down from Charter Hill off the pavement and is attributed directly to where they took the temperature off Moonbrook. So in other words, it's measuring the temperature of the pavement. Summarily, that's what's driven the temperature readings up from Combination Pond. Has nothing to do with the pond itself. It has to do with the temperature off Charter Hills and all the pavement coming off there. I'm going to put that in the record because I believe it belongs there. There's a lot of money going to be spent on this project. I believe it's ludicrous. There have been no evidence of dead brook trout. There's been no autopsies of dead brook trout. There's a lot of money going to be spent for no reason. Thank you for your time. Anybody have any questions for me?
No, but I appreciate you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Perspective. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion, and it has been seconded. Any additional questions or discussion among the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We have Treasurer Markowski again with a request that the board president be authorized to sign the municipal checklist for internal control, and a memo and a copy of the checklist can be found on pages 30 to 33 of your packet.
Okay, this is an outline of just identifying the controls that we have in place in the treasurer's office over the financial records. This is an annual review required by the state of Vermont. So I'm just asking for your approval. We need to do this at the end, toward the end of the year. I'm just getting ready to do some of the annual year-end. But having said that, when you look at this control checklist, we do a lot more in the office in terms of assessment of our internal controls. This is required, and then we do a much lengthier process for the audit for the city. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'll move to suspend the rules.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to suspend the rules. It's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'll move to authorize the chair to sign the checklist for internal controls for the treasurer's office.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion, and it has been seconded to authorize me to sign the municipal checklist for internal control.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, next we have reports of standing committees, and we have 3 from Alderwoman Taddeo. First is the General Committee report from May 17th. The copy is on page 34 of your packet.
And the topic was remote participation in Board of Aldermen meetings. Committee members present were Alderwoman Hooker, Alderwoman Savage, Alderman Coopoli, Alderman Barbagallo. Others present were Alderman Talbot, Mayor Dungus, Alderwoman McClure, and Alderman McCann. The meeting was called to order at 5:31 p.m. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss remote participation in Board of Aldermen meetings. In January 2019, before the pandemic, the state produced a guide on open meeting laws, including guidance on when and how remote participation can be achieved legally. Our city charter is silent on remote participation, so Robert's Rules of Order govern in the absence of our city rules. In Robert's Rules, there are 4 scenarios for remote participation, and we need to choose one option so that the city can put out an RFP to install technology in the chambers and conference room to make remote participation possible. Option A includes the most flexibility and options for voting and participation for both members of the public and for members of the Board of Aldermen. The other 3 options are more limiting for participation. The committee determined that it would make sense to adopt one of the Roberts Rules scenarios so that we can put out an RFP to outfit the chambers appropriately and to continue to discuss the exact rules for voting. Alderman McCann mentioned that there would be issues with anonymity when people are ballot voting in the chamber and people are additionally voting online. Many board members do not currently bring a computer, so we couldn't all vote electronically. After further discussion about logistics and our needs, we determined that option A would suit Rutland City's needs the best because our goals are to maximize opportunities for participation. A motion was made to adopt scenario A of the Roberts Rules of Order for electronic meetings and to put out an RFP for the technology to support this. Motion passed 5-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to adopt scenario A for remote participation. It has been seconded and put out an RFP for the technology to support. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
A discussion of the rules for remote participation and voting will remain in committee. The meeting adjourned at 5:56 p.m.
Thank you. And next is the Community and Economic Development Committee report from May 23rd on page 35 of your packet.
This meeting was about the 10% in Vermont grant. Members present were Alderwoman Hooker, Alderwoman Taddeo, and Alderwoman Davis. Others present were Mayor Dunges, Alderman Talbot, Alderman Kupeli, Alderman Barbagallo, Alderman Gillum, Alderwoman Savage, Treasurer Markowski, and Barbara Spalding. The meeting was called to order at 5:30 p.m. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the 10% in Vermont grant introduced by State Treasurer Mike Piechek. The 10% in Vermont fund has been developed because Vermont State has a surplus of money and has up to $85 million available for communities to borrow. Each project can receive up to $25 million. Mayor Dunges explained that the city is working on creating a Rutland City Housing Trust Fund, which would provide access to low-interest loans and grants. The idea is to have NeighborWorks manage the fund and have the city sponsor the program. Rutland City, in partnership with NeighborWorks, would like to apply for the grant to support housing in Rutland. Rutland City needs to build the trust fund, but there will be no financial commitment for the city. NeighborWorks will manage the funds, assume financial responsibility, and sign any documents relating to administering the funds. NeighborWorks will assume responsibility for repaying the $8 million loan we are hoping to receive. Rutland City will apply for $8 million broken into 3 segments. The first $1 million would go toward the rental rehab revolving loan fund. This would bring that fund from $300,000 to $1.3 million. The second piece will be for $2 million with the intention of using this money for loans for outdoor home improvements. The third piece would be for $5 million to be used as a flexible fund for housing development. This could be for mixed use, including building new buildings and doing construction, or for rehab of existing buildings. We will determine the specifics of who qualifies for the loans once we know if we have received the grant. Alderman Talbot further explained that the intention is to create a board and structure to review the loans that will be distributed throughout the community. The application is due June 1st, and we should know within 30 days. There will be a second round in August. A motion was made to create a Rutland City Housing Trust Fund and read a proclamation in support of this loan that will be reviewed by the city attorney. The motion passed 3-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Alderwoman Hooker.
Just a comment that I think this is a really win-win situation for the city and for NeighborWorks, as the city doesn't have any financial responsibility per se, and NeighborWorks is able to show the type of work that they have, that their mission established. So it's a good thing.
Any additional comments from the board? Member of the public would like to comment?
I have a property on 104 4th Street in Rutland, Vermont. I was not paid for 2 years of rental income from an individual who qualified through November 15th of 2021. The rules of the state of Vermont were changed because he had to go online and do some documents and/or sign a document. I received no rent for 2 years, $30,000 of back rent, basically destroyed the property. We have to figure a way to have the tenants have some responsibility in this process. We've turned on the magnet. We are basically saying to the other individuals across the country, come to the state of Vermont. You'll provide social services to you. Some of the hotels got $150 a day, over $4,000 a month. I'm having a difficult time collecting 2 years of back rent. Called the city police department. When I was trying to do weatherization, the tenant would not let me in the apartment to close the windows, to provide insulation services before the winter. He used to open the windows during the winter, let the heat run. Something has to change. Many of these tenants have representation that costs them nothing from Vermont Legal Aid. The landlords are left basically hanging out to dry. It's an issue that needs to be resolved and worked with in the state of Vermont. There are property owners that try to take care of their property, but when they are left in a position where they cannot evict tenants, not collect rent, they have water, sewer, property taxes to pay, then the city comes after and basically impacts fees and late charges. It's an inequitable situation that needs to be resolved. It needs consideration by this board. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and it has been seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Meeting adjourned at 5:54 p.m. The next general committee meeting, we met on Thursday, May 25th. The topics were Juneteenth and creation of a proclamation in support of May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Committee members present were Alderwoman Hooker, Alderman Barbagallo, Alderman Kupali, Alderwoman Savage, and Alderwoman Taddeo. Others present were Alderman Talbot, Alderwoman Davis, Treasurer Markowski, and Russell Flannery. Meeting was called to order at 5:30 p.m. Community member Russell Flannery stated he would like Rutland City to officially designate May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. His intention is to call attention to the contributions of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community in Rutland. He would like the Board of Aldermen to pass a declaration in support to support the month in line with the Vermont State Declaration. The aldermen discussed the many ways our community benefits from various cultures in our city and the benefits Rutland students receive from participation in the RISE program. The RISE program is the Rutland City and Hanamaki Japan Student Exchange Program for 8th and 9th grade students in Rutland City. Alderman Michael Talbot recommended passing a version of the governor's resolution with an additional portion highlighting RISE and drawing attention to racism here in our community. It was agreed upon to place a copy of the resolution on the Rutland City website and read it or an updated version every year at the beginning of May. A motion was made to write a proclamation in support of Asian American and Pacific Islander Month and to read it annually at the first Board of Aldermen meeting in May. Motion passed 5-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And at this time, I would actually like to pause and allow the mayor to read the proclamation that I did have a chance to write, actually. So
Great.
It is prepared. And in the future, it will be read at the beginning of May. Unfortunately, this referral came to us at our second Board of Aldermen meeting, or we would have done this earlier. So sorry that this is late, but in the future, it will be the 1st of May.
Great, thank you. Rutland City Proclamation in support of Asian American and Pacific American Heritage Month. Whereas Section 102 of Title 36, United States Code, officially designates May as Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month, and whereas Asian and Pacific Americans have played an important and essential roles throughout American and Vermont's history, and whereas Vermont celebrates its residents and visitors of Asian and Pacific Island heritage and has welcomed a 54% increase in the AAPI Vermont population as reflected in the 2020 United States Census, and whereas Rutland is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive place where all residents and visitors are safe to live, work, and play, and whereas Rutland has supported the RISE program since 1986, facilitating a cross-cultural student exchange for hundreds of Rutland students between Hanamaki, Japan, and Rutland, Vermont. And whereas in the month of May, Rutlanders celebrate the accomplishments of our Asian and Pacific American neighbors and community members and condemn the bullying, discrimination, and hate crimes that they have and may face. Now, therefore, I, Mike Dunges, Mayor, hereby proclaim May 2023 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in Rutland.
Thank you. Alderwoman Taddeo then spoke about designating Juneteenth as a citywide holiday and offering the holiday as part of a paid day off for city workers. Her intention is to show people our city is committed to efforts to support diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to attract more BIPOC people to Rutland City. She explained this change would involve negotiations with 4 separate unions, including the police department, the fire department, the Department of Public Works, and the Recreation Department. Each union has different time periods to negotiate their contracts, but according to Attorney Bloomer, the city could offer each union a memorandum of understanding that updates the contract until it is officially renegotiated. Alderwoman Taddeo explained she had spoken with the Rutland Area NAACP and has their support for this change. To be cost neutral to the city of Rutland, Treasurer Markowski stated that substituting a floater holiday, such as an employee's birthday or Washington's birthday for Juneteenth, would be an easy option. Alderman Barbagallo suggested combining Washington and Lincoln's birthdays into one holiday to add Juneteenth. Ultimately, the unions will decide which option works best for them. A motion was made to direct the city administration to propose to the city unions that Juneteenth would be a replacement floating holiday, and to have the city attorney draw up a memorandum of understanding for the unions. This motion passed 5-0, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Meeting adjourned at 6:14 p.m.
Thank you, Alderwoman Taddeo. Next, we have reports of representatives, which we have one, Alderman McCann, as representative to the Rutland City Planning Commission.
Thank you, and this is just sort of an informal update. The official minutes will be coming from Barbara Spalding at some point, I believe. But on May 24th, the Planning Commission held its regular meeting. Commission members present were Rebecca Mattis, Sarah Roy, Patrick Griffin, and Alvin Fiegel. Also present were Andrew Shinisti, Barbara Spalding, and Alderman McCann. Attending virtually were Mayor Dunges and John Ruggiero. The primary focus of the meeting was to continue discussing old business of proposed zoning regulations, specifically the design control districts as drafted by Alvin Fiegel in around 2004, and how they might be adapted for use in the current zoning update. Parking was also discussed. This included winter parking, parking in the green belt, and parking minimums, which those the city does not currently have, and the commission does not plan to suggest we add them. It was noted that the commission should have a clear understanding of current parking requirements and any changes to parking requirements that may be in process to help inform what they might do with parking suggestions. This led the commission to request a couple of things of the Board of Aldermen, and I'll go through them one at a time so you guys can help me figure out sort of what we can or need to do with these. The first, the commission would like the city to consider doing away with the winter parking ban. I'm thinking that that's something I could make a motion to be referred to the traffic committee if people are willing to have that considered.
So I think Alderman McCann is asking if someone would make a motion to refer discussion of the winter parking ban to the parking committee. Attorney Bloomer?
It is in the ordinances, so eventually you'd want to send it to that committee, but wherever you'd like to start is also.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it might be worth still going to the traffic committee first, so that we can get the police chief and DPW involved in that discussion, and then if they're comfortable with it, we could take it to charter and ordinance. Do you mean parking or traffic safety? Traffic. If I said parking to begin with, I meant traffic committee. Okay.
I'll move to refer to traffic committee.
Second. All right, so we have a motion to refer to traffic committee. It has been seconded. Any discussion among the board members? Alderwoman McClure.
Alderman McCann, I just have one question. Why traffic safety over parking if it's a winter parking ban?
So this actually gets to one of the other things that I'm going to ask about is clarity on who manages what parts of the parking discussion overall. It seems like this issue has been sort of discussed by both the parking committee and the traffic committee. And I think that the traffic committee has been sort of addressing these sorts of questions on a broader scale and for longer than the traffic committee, if I understand correctly. So I do want to start there, and then, you know, if they want to send it to parking committee as well, we can.
So we're just discussing sending this to a committee to talk about it. Did you want to add something for the record? Go right ahead.
Once again, my name is Michel Messier, 10 Hill Pond Road. I go by Mike. I believe the parking ban should be equal protection under the law for the whole city of Rutland. From my understanding, it's 3 a.m. in downtown Rutland. I got a ticket at 2:56 a.m. because of a Christmas party I held at my house. So I believe it should be equal across the city of Rutland. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion to refer discussion of the winter parking ban to the traffic committee. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The commission would also like to see the issue of greenbelt parking, which I believe had previously been addressed by the traffic committee and then sent to the Board of Aldermen, where it was referred to the Charter and Ordinance Committee. They would like to see that continue to be discussed. So my ask is for the Charter and Ordinance Committee to schedule a meeting to discuss this issue with an invitation to members of both the Parking Committee and the Planning Commission.
All right. I don't think we need any formal action by the board if it's already
great
in committee. Alderwoman Savage can call a meeting when the time is right.
And then
Alderwoman Davis.
go ahead.
Could we just clarify, you're talking about parking on green spaces in front, did we not resolve that issue with how we wrote it before? Because we rewrote that.
I think we addressed the parking of vehicles for storage, trailers and those type of things. And then I think we left it with the chief has the ability to restrict parking in particular areas. So the conversation at that point in time, I think, was if there are certain problem areas, it may be better to have him restrict parking in those areas rather than have a citywide ban on folks parking in the green.
And I think we thought that because of the curving that's going on is going to prevent you from having that ability to park between the sidewalk and the road, type of thing. So I don't have any problem with it going back to committee. It's just that a lot of work has been done on it. So I just didn't know what more needed to be done.
Alderman McCann?
Yeah, I did attend one of the traffic committee meetings, I think, before I got to sit on this board, and I remember they were sort of asking about the same issue, and to them the question was, well, whatever happened with it? It sounded to them like they thought it went somewhere and then never moved or died. That added to my understanding that maybe it had just sort of faltered at some point, so that's why I was asking for it to go to committee.
So it sounds like there might need to be some additional discussion of it in committee, and if it already sits in Charter and Ordinance. Alderwoman McClure, did you have a question? Comment?
My question on that was, Alderman McCann, sorry. Specifically, would this be in reference to personal vehicles, commercial vehicles, both of which I know that there are small business owners within our community who do utilize edges of their lawn that encroach on the green space for parking of commercial vehicles. Will there be any sort of exception for that, or will it just be blanketed?
Good question that I don't know the answer to. My guess is it would be all, but I wasn't part of that discussion when it originally came to the board and was referred. But I imagine that could be part of the discussion when the committee meeting happens.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks. So then the last point, the commission is interested in requesting a brief outline of the current state of parking regulations and what changes may be in the works. This includes how the development and enforcement of those regulations is distributed between the parking committee, the traffic committee, DPW, and the police department. If development of this sort of report could be completed by a member of the city staff for presentation to the commission, I'd like to make that request. Otherwise, I'd suggest that we find a time for the mayor, the police chief, and DPW commissioner to attend an upcoming planning commission so that they can help provide that clarity on the subject for the members of the planning commission. And again, this is as we continue to work on zoning, we don't end up with zoning requirements that kind of contradict our other parking discussions that are going on with the other committees.
Mayor Dundas, did you want to respond to that request?
Yes, we can absolutely. I think that's a fantastic idea. I was in the meeting and part of that conversation, so being able to align those different pieces as we go forward is really important. So,
great.
Yeah, happy to do that.
All right, thank you. That was it for me.
Thank you, Alderman McCann. So, reports of select committees. We have two. First up is the report from the Parking Committee's meeting on May 17th. Alderman Barbagallo.
Okay, the Parking Committee met on March 27, 2023. The meeting was called to order at 6 p.m. Committee members in attendance were myself, Alderman McCain and McClure, Police Chief Kilcullen, and DPW Commissioner Rotundo. Also in attendance, Mayor Dundas, President Talbot, Aldermans Davis, Taddeo, and Savage, Don Curtis, and Officer Rosario. Items on the agenda to be discussed: parking rates, parking zone app, parking meters, parking max app, zone rates, electric vehicle EV locations, parking garage. Other items discussed: parking ticket rates and barricaded parking spot permit fees. The committee discussed raising parking rates. It was noted that Rutland City parking rates were much lower than those in the 9 nearby communities based on an informal survey conducted previously by former Alderman Neary. These rates range from 95 cents per hour in Barre, Vermont to $2.35 per hour in Lake George, New York. The current maximum rate for meter parking in Rutland City is 50 cents per hour. A motion was made to the committee by Alderman McClure to raise the city street and surface lot parking rate maximum to $1.50 per hour citywide, and that parking spot rates per zone would be set specifically in the chart filed with the city clerk. The motion passed unanimously, and I so move.
Second. So we have a motion, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Alderwoman Davis.
Alderman Barbagallo, when is the anticipated date that this would go into effect?
That was not decided. A discussion with Commissioner Rotundo, I asked him if the current meters could be adjusted to accommodate this rate. He felt they could not, so this would probably not be able to come into effect until we have the new equipment installed in the city, and that is in the report further down that you will hear.
Alderman McCann, and then Mayor Dundas.
Yeah, so my thought was that it might go into effect immediately, but the idea is setting the maximum of $1.50 doesn't mean that every spot becomes $1.50 right now. It just allows for that adjustment in the future. So my thought is it would be in effect now so that we have that flexibility where we have the technology to match it. So that's a good question that we didn't decide at the meeting, I think.
So to kind of follow up both points, it's going to take at least 30 days to get the software, the zones, the charts set up. So it won't be for the next 30 days. So there'll be a nice bit of notice to the public so that they're aware that the rates are going up. And we can even do some through the downtown partnership, letting them know to get the word out as well to businesses. Sorry, I will wait till the shifting goes by. Yeah, and we'll get the information out to the downtown partnership as well so they can notify business owners.
Okay, thank you. Any additional discussion? Alderman Gillum.
I just want to make sure we get the word out, PR out on this, and make sure the business people know this before we pull the trigger on this, at least 30 days prior, so they're ready and prepared so they can tell their customers. I don't think we can just throw this down their throat. I think we need to give them a little warning, for sure.
Yep.
Seeing nothing further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. The committee discussed the actual rate per parking zone and that the zones themselves should be evaluated by city staff. Representatives from Rutland City Police and the Department of Public Works should be included at a minimum. The resulting suggestions for zones and associated rates would be brought back to the parking committee for review and approval. A motion was made by Alderman McClure to allow the mayor to establish a zone setting committee. The motion passed unanimously, and I so move.
Second.
So we have a motion to allow the mayor to establish a zone setting committee, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Alderman Gillum?
Who is on this zone setting committee? Is that the people you just mentioned up above here, the Public Works, Police, and the mayor's office, or?
No, we're authorizing the mayor to form a committee, a zone setting committee. So it would be whoever he chooses to pick.
Made up of.
Mayor Dundas, do you have any insights into whom you might choose to serve on this committee?
Absolutely. So this committee is probably going to be somebody from the treasurer's office, likely Dawn, because she spends time on parking. I'll discuss that with Mary, make sure that works with her schedule. Emilio from the police department, likely, because he currently manages parking. And then we'll talk to Bob about who from DPW would be the most appropriate there. So it's going to be a committee of 3 or 4 people just to figure out what the best zones are, where the streets will fall. And basically it's built, the committee is really just going to end up building a spreadsheet of zones and rates for those zones based on the data that we already have. So there won't be too many changes. It's just a lot of, work to get it done.
And the partnership would be involved?
The partnership can absolutely be involved if they want. I'd be happy to have them on the committee. It's a great idea.
All right. Anything additional? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The committee discussed parking ticket rates in relation to an idea that in some cases it's cheaper to pay the parking ticket than it's cheaper to pay a parking ticket than it is to pay the parking meter rate. A motion was made by Alderman McClure to set expired parking meter rate fines at $30 for the first violation, $45 for a second violation, and $60 for a third violation at metered parking facilities citywide. The motion passed unanimously, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion. It has been seconded. Alderwoman Davis.
So I will vote against this motion. I feel really strongly that we need to look at these. We need to make good choices. We need to find a resolution to support the parking meter fund. And we're doing that. We've done that by moving personnel, moving retired personnel out. I voted to accept the $1.50 rate because it's been a number of years since we've looked at the downtown rate. I think a lot of the loss of revenue has to do with the kiosks. People they either don't work or they just not going to walk to them. But I think taking the fines and doubling them is a large step. We are not a destination town. We're not like Woodstock, we're not Burlington, we're not Montpelier. The people that are going to pay these are you and your next door neighbors, people that are downtown shopping. When they did the survey for the partnership, put a survey out, I read the survey. They were not supportive of seeing this kind of an increase. I know that President Talbot talked about, I don't know, a study or somebody said you really shouldn't ask the downtown merchants for their input. But these downtown merchants pay a pretty hefty tax to be downtown and the special benefits tax. So do I support an increase in fines from where we are to where we need to be? Absolutely. Do I think that we double, triple, and quadruple them at the end? Absolutely not. And I cannot support this motion.
Thank you. Alderman McCann.
So, my thought with that would be, ideally, nobody would have to pay these fines, right? We're setting a max rate at $1.50, which, that's a bit of a jump from what we have. And preferably, people would pay that, and they would save themselves a ton of money by paying the actual parking rate than by doing this. So we have to make this an actual incentive to utilize the parking rates rather than try to shirk or sidestep the parking rates. I think that's kind of where at least my thought was coming from in setting some of these dollar amounts to really make an incentive to do what we want people to do, which is just pay for the parking rather than hope they don't get a ticket.
Alderman Copley.
Thank you. It's quite obvious that people aren't paying the $15 fines for the most part, particularly out-of-town people who do come down and park their cars. Doubling the fine, I think, is going to make it even more difficult for people to pay. They probably won't. Unless we come up with a plan to bring the boot back or some way to maybe publicly acknowledge these people who have hundreds of dollars of fines by putting their names in the paper or something of that nature. But I think doubling the fine is not going to stop or fix the issue. I would agree with Alderwoman Davis that.
Alderwoman McClure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much both to Alderman Copley and Davis for speaking on this. I love to hear the other perspective on this. So this sort of came from a discussion had with Chief Kilcullen and Officer Rosario during the parking committee meeting, in which it was discussed that the main receivers of these $10 tickets in our downtown area tend to be repeat offenders. And these repeat offenders have stated themselves that it's cheaper to get a parking ticket in downtown than it is to feed the meter for a work day. And that's just one of those things where I really think that why play the system? Why play the system? Why take from the municipality that we all so deeply care about and just choose, instead of feeding the parking meter, doing your civic duty as someone who works and shops and lives in downtown, why would you scam our city in the boldest of terms, but it's the truest of terms. Why scam our city? Why take from this municipality that is working so hard to provide and build and just get the $10 ticket? A $30 ticket will keep these repeat offenders from doing it again. A raise on that, even more, if they continue to leave their car in the spot where they're thinking, oh, it's only $10. I'll go down to City Hall on Friday and I'll pay all 50 of them for the week. Why is that fair? Why is that fair? Why is that fair?
Well, I think one of the arguments, too, was it may drive people to parking in the parking deck.
And is that not a good thing?
No, that's a great thing. However, it's not happening.
It's not happening.
But it will. But it will. To incentivize people to utilize.
Alderwoman Davis was up next. If folks want to speak again, I'll call on them again.
Understood.
So
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, are you through?
I was just thinking.
So I don't disagree with Alderman McClure. The problem is these are downtown workers who are going down and feeding the meters or not going down to feed the meters. That's a different issue. That's an issue that the partnership and the businesses downtown need to gain some control over, people that are working there that are parking in spaces that someone who needs to shop there could use that space. Back in the day, we did an amnesty program where, say, Sharon Davis had $450 worth of parking tickets, okay? They offered me an opportunity to come into the treasurer's office and pay half of that amount. Clear it up. Granted, we didn't get all money that was due us, but we got money that we wouldn't have ever gotten before. To Alderman Kubley's point, we did put names in the paper. Sharon Davis owes $450 worth of parking fines. People came through that door to pay those because it was an embarrassment to them to be sitting in the Rutland Herald saying, look how much money. And then the other issue is the boot. And I know that's difficult with the amount of personnel that we may have at the police department. But we have I don't know, I don't see Treasurer Markowski still here. I don't know if she is here. Oh, I saw the hand go up. So I don't know how much we have in parking meter fines that have not been collected, but that is also an opportunity for revenue that we need to look at before we just double a fine. This picture is bigger than just let's raise a rate.
Alderwoman McClure.
If I just may speak to one point brought up by Alderwoman Davis here, you keep referring back to putting names in the paper, putting names of people, putting people on blast. From the Gen Z perspective in the age of social media, that frankly will not work. There is no shame in having your name published, especially when people...
That's shameful in itself.
There is not, and there is, but that is a cultural change, and there is no shame in that at this point. The public call-out does not work the way it has in the past, and it is not...
us all.
And the way to do that is, the way to increase accountability is to put the pressure on financially. People are not going to care if they see their name blasted on the city Facebook page or in the newspaper with so-and-so has X amount of parking tickets. People can post whatever they want on the internet, and people can say a lot worse than so-and-so has X amount of parking tickets. But if we put the pressure on their wallet, forget the shame, they're going to be concerned about these increasing parking fines.
Thank you. Alderman Barbagallo and then Alderman McCann.
Okay. One of the other things that came up and we talked about is that hopefully these new fines might encourage people to use the parking deck, because you pull into the parking deck, you're going to get a ticket, you're going to pay whatever it is when you come out. Now, I'm not saying it's going to. A lot of people just don't want to park in that parking deck for whatever reason, be it they don't want to walk that far or they simply, for whatever reason, don't feel it's safe to park there, you know, even though I'm pretty sure it is. But that was one of the reasons that we're raising these fines, is to encourage people to park in the deck so that employees working downtown will park in the deck, freeing up the spaces downtown for customers who want to shop downtown.
Thank you. Alderman McCann.
Yeah, I think there was some discussion too about the worthwhileness of going after people for small amounts of money. I think that came from the chief, that there are some things that are just not worth the time, so things get thrown out. And so there was also some thoughts about trying to make it worth the city's time to actually hold people accountable for their actions. And I don't know how these numbers fall into that discussion compared to some of the other infractions we were talking about, but I think that comes into play as well.
Are there any members of the board who've not yet spoken on this that would like to Alderman Gillum, I'll have you speak again, and then
I have to tend to agree with Alderman Davis, but then I also agree with the committee's work. I was downtown the other night and I was watching the flow to go to Paramount and some other major events that were happening over the weekend. A lot of people were parking in the plaza, which is not good because that puts pressure on Walmart and Price Chopper and the rest of them trying to get their customers in their door. And there was no parking in front of Walmart when I drove through there. So things are going to shift. That's my concern here. Is it going to shift in the right way we want it to go, or is it going to shift in the bad way we want it to go? I agree we need to get people pushed into or use the parking. Matter of fact, it's much easier for us, I'm concerned, to park in the parking garage and walk across the street to Paramount than it is to park way over here and walk down the street. But people in Rutland have this concept about the garage. So, I'm not sure.
Attorney Bloomer, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I had just 3 quick comments. One is technical. So these fines are set in the ordinances, so they would need to eventually be put in that form and go through that process versus just a motion that gets voted on by the full board. As part of that process, I would want to work with the board to understand, you know, if first, second, and third violations are, you know, in a person's life, or if that's in a month or a year, or, you know, whatever it may be. So that needs a little bit of clarity as well. And then the third thing is, in my role as a traffic court judge, we get a lot of appeals for snow ban tickets because they're $50 and we don't really have very great signage, and we ticket even when it's 70 degrees and people aren't thinking about snow. So we get a lot of those. But if you take those out, the remaining tickets, I would say at least 75% of those are people complaining that the meters don't work or that the kiosks don't work, and that they either fed the meter, didn't get the correct amount of time, or they couldn't feed the kiosk. And I don't know how many of those people are just like saying, whatever, it's $15, it's not worth my time to you know, the people who that happens to, you know, there are probably some of them that just pay the ticket, or maybe they just don't pay it at all. But if you use that as kind of a sample size, there are quite a few people who are at least claiming that, you know, the mechanical meters are running fast and the kiosks are not working at various times. So I'm not sure, you know, how this factors, other than I know that people will be more hostile about getting a $30 fine if they put in the right amount, or if they try to pay the kiosks. And this is a bonus 4th thing. Some people will send their check in and say, I'm paying my fine, but I'm never coming back to Rutland to shop again, because, you know, pick your reason, I guess, why we shouldn't have ticketed them. But there is sort of an economic development piece to it, that if people get hostile about being fined either fairly or unfairly, I think it's probably at least a factor to take into consideration.
Mayor Dunges.
Yeah, so just real quick, there's a couple of things I wanted to address. First of all, the first, second, and third is a schedule. It's a fine schedule that's built into what the clerk charges, or what is charged when the tickets get processed. So first offense is you didn't pay the meter and it expired. You paid the meter and it expired, or you didn't pay the meter at all. Second offense is you've been in the spot for too long. Third offense is this. So it's already on the schedule. There's already a schedule already exists for that. So it's not in perpetuity. It's
the same day, if you
same day, same spot. It's even the same spot. So you
Does
can park.
not mean if you got a ticket 2 days in a row, you're going to get $45 on the second ticket.
Okay.
The second ticket's still going to be $30 unless you stay there too long beyond the expired time and Officer Rosario comes back again. Then he'll give you a second ticket, which will be $45.
Okay.
Mayor Dunges?
Yeah, so, and then I was going to save this till after the motion either way, but one of the things that the city does now is it's a 7-day window from the time of the ticket to the time that you have to pay before it goes up to that second rate. I think that if you look at those other cities that we were talking about and why we chose to raise the rates, those times are about 15 days before that next bump, or the late fee, so to speak, is applied. So in the parking committee, I was going to bring it back to the parking committee that we look at extending those dates in the process as well. So just to keep that in mind.
All right, Alderwoman McClure.
Thank you. And I just wanted to circle back just in these minutes here. I don't know if it was properly reported, but this was also contingent on the implementation of our new parking meter system, Park Mobile. So people should not have an issue with feeding the meter because they will be able to do so digitally. And I know that there was some discussion with now former Commissioner Rotundo about the implementation of new meters. So.
And a member of the public wishes to speak.
So, Michel Messier, once again, 10 Hill Pond and 104 Forest Street. I think when it comes down to taxation, we need to step back and think a little bit. Fines, fees, the rest of it. I believe our current city rate is for non-residents 3.6%, 3.4 to 3.5% for residents. The national average is between 1.6 and 1.8%. The highest other city that I can see is New Jersey at 2.44%. So we are already burdened by our taxation in this city. So I understand that we need checks and balances. We need to balance the liabilities, assets, incomes, and outgoes of our city. But we are already one of the highest taxed cities in the country. And I challenge anybody out there that can find one that's higher. So we need to think about when we're asking for more fees, more fines, more taxes, more water and sewer, whatever it is, think about where we are already. And let's see if we can find a way to reduce our fees, fines, and property taxes. I care for the city of Rutland, but what's happening is you're driving the average person somewhere else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we have a motion. It has been seconded, and there has been extensive discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Oh,
Motion passes. I couldn't tell how many ayes and noes there were.
Ask for a show of hands.
Raise your hand if you voted aye. 6. And raise your hand if you voted no. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 6-4. Motion passes.
Okay, moving on. The committee discussed the need to assess current fees for all other types of parking violations to ensure that fees are representative of the severity of the impact and cost to the city. I move that the issue of the city parking related restrictions and related fines be referred to the parking committee for a comprehensive assessment and reevaluation, and I so move.
Second.
So just for some clarification, I think this is sort of already in the committee.
Okay, so we don't need to make a
when we
motion,
created
we
the
just-
parking committee, we
All right,
referred these sorts of things to
You
the
can forget the motion. All right.
Forget by second.
The committee discussed the length of time an individual has to pay the ticket before the fine is increased, currently to 7 days, after which the fine doubles. It was suggested that we may need to lengthen that time. I move that the issue of the amount of time an individual, again, this we can probably do away with.
under
this.
the same
Again,
initial creation of the
we can
committee.
discuss it in the parking committee and bring it back later. All right. The committee discussed permit rates for activities that would restrict access to metered parking spots. These are meters that are covered for construction crews and various other events. The current rate is a one-time fee of $5 per meter, regardless of the length of time the meter spot is made unavailable. It was suggested that this rate be changed to $5 per day, per meter. A motion was made by Alderman McClure to change the barricaded meter policy to $5 per meter per day. The motion passed unanimously, and I so moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Alderman Gillum?
I agree with this one for sure. I think we're at $3 now, or are we at
$5.
$5.
Forever.
forever? Okay.
Yeah.
Not forever.
As
I
long
think
as you
per
stay
meter
there.
is fine. This is good.
It hopefully will encourage people to get their business done quicker and
Correct.
free that space up for revenue.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The committee discussed the purchase of new parking fee collection equipment, new meters, and possibly kiosk systems are being considered. Commissioner Rotundo presented a recently expired quote for costs related to replacing the city's existing meters and possibly adding more. Officer Rosario discussed difficulties in collecting payments from and maintaining existing meters. The new meters would accept coins and be compatible with the Park Mobile app. Use of kiosks was discussed, and although not preferred for on-street parking, they may be more appropriate for use in city parking lots to reduce maintenance. Officer Rosario shared that the new touchscreen kiosk systems are expected to perform better and could be retrofitted into the existing kiosk units. This issue will remain in committee for further discussion. Mayor Dunges provided an update on the existing parking garage lease and suggested we extend the lease with the Laz Corporation on the parking garage for now. Discussion will be had with Laz about future use of the garage. Mayor Dunges provided an update on an opportunity to have 3 new electric vehicle charging stations installed in the city. A private firm using grant money would install and own them. Revenue would be split with the city receiving approximately 10% of the income and the firm receiving the remainder. The private firm would also pay a monthly fee to the city for the use of the parking spots. 2 charging stations would be high-speed stations and 1 would be a normal charging station, each serving up to 2 vehicles. These need to be placed near electrical facilities that can support these stations and should be off-street to not impede winter plowing. The meter was adjourned at 7:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Just have one quick question.
Alderwoman Davis?
So Alderman Barbagallo, had to leave your meeting early. Was there any discussion about adding those additional meters in spots? Because there was something like $28,000 worth of additional revenue if we metered sections of the city that we had planned to but have not done.
To be honest, I can't remember. It was such a long meeting.
It was, yeah.
I think what we were looking at was looking at areas where right now meters, for example, Court Street, meters are not really being utilized, whether it's worth it to purchase new meters and install them up there or simply using a mobile app in this location.
Right.
And that is being considered because that way we would still be collecting revenue, but we wouldn't have equipment that we'd have to worry about maintaining.
Right.
And because the kiosks can be retrofitted, hopefully when we do install new meters on the city streets, these kiosk units can be removed and moved to the parking lots and retrofitted with a new touch screen, which is supposedly much more reliable than the present push-button screens that we now have. And hopefully will, again, generate more revenue because they'll work more.
Mayor Dunges, you got a comment?
Sure, yeah, we also did discuss those additional spots that you're referring to, and I do believe, if I remember correctly, that we were going to look at that when we did the zone study, figure out what we were going to charge those. I have to go back and listen to the recording exactly. There's no decision on it, but I do believe we discussed it and looked at the potential revenue.
Just so it's kept alive in parking committee to have that discussion.
Very good. Next up is Alderwoman Taddeo with a report from the Environmental Sustainability Committee.
The Environmental Sustainability Committee met Thursday, May 18th. The topics were creation of a mission statement, adoption of a green fleet policy, and assistance with home weatherization. Committee members present were myself, Alderman McCann, Alderman Barbagallo, and others present were Alderman Michael Talbot. Meeting was called to order at 5:31 p.m. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss a mission statement for the committee, a green fleet policy for the committee, and a home weatherization program. We discussed the need to create a mission statement or a statement of some sort that would help community members understand the purpose of the committee. Brandon has an energy committee, and this committee has done a lot of good projects for their city. I would like to recreate some of those ideas here in Rutland, including connecting people with opportunities for home weatherization programs, do-it-yourself solar, and educational workshops for homeowners and renters on how to improve home efficiency. Alderman McCann stated there are a lot of things that we could do with this committee, such as seek a Bee City USA certification and a Tree City certification, or get a bike-friendly recommendation, which would be great press for our city. Alderman Barbagallo said we could add resources to the city website under the Environmental Sustainability Committee page to help get people connected with home efficiency programs and home weatherization programs. Alderman Talbot suggested doing a press release for the Environmental Sustainability Committee and that we could offer Efficiency Vermont a spot at Friday Night Live to help city residents connect with programs to assist them. The committee discussed the creation of a Green Fleet policy, which is a policy that tracks emissions of city vehicles and aims to replace city vehicles with more fuel-efficient vehicles. The goal of a Green Fleet policy is to reduce Rutland's reliance on carbon and reduce Rutland's environmental footprint. We could consider our emergency vehicles, plow trucks, school buses, and city mowers and other city equipment that cause carbon emissions. Alderman Barbagallo stated that one of the police vehicles will need to be replaced soon, and it would be a good idea to purchase an electric one that could be charged downtown as the replacement. Alderman Talbot recommended that we use the Complete Streets guidance from DPW as a guide in our creation of a Green Fleet policy. The mission statement and creation of a Green Fleet policy will remain in this committee, and this report is for informational purposes only. Meeting adjourned at 6:07 p.m.
Thank you, Alderwoman Taddeo. Next, petitions, letters, miscellaneous communications. We have none. Board of Control Commissioners, we have nothing on the agenda. Board of Cannabis Commissioners, we have nothing on the agenda. That brings us to unfinished business. Any unfinished business? Alderman McCann?
So thinking about the motion that came from Alderman Barbagallo's parking committee report about setting the parking meter fines at 30, 45, and 60, it sounded like the city attorney said that needs to be changed in the charter and ordinance. So do we need to refer that to charter and ordinance committee? Yes, I would make a motion to refer our new fines for the expired parking meters to the charter and ordinance committee to get that updated to what we agreed on tonight.
Second. So we have a motion to refer, and it's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Alderman McCann. Any additional unfinished business, Alderwoman McClure?
I have new business. Is it too early to introduce that?
It is too early,
Okay.
but sit tight.
You got it.
Attorney Bloomer.
If I could just get some clarification too on the Juneteenth motion, whether whether it's okay if the unions choose, I guess they're different choices, whether they choose one not to have it at all, just to keep birthday and Washington or Lincoln's birthday. So if there's a union that doesn't want to change, but there's 3 others that do we want to move forward, or do we want to have consensus among all the unions? And does it matter which day they're, so let's say all of them do want to swap, but 2 of them want Lincoln's birthday to be swapped and 2 want their birthday. Does that matter to anybody?
Alderwoman Taddeo and
My
then Mayor
intention was not that the unions have everything very consistent, although I know that there is discussion about wanting to bring the unions more in line with some of what's going on. But no, I would ultimately like to leave it to the union to decide, but I would like the language to strongly encourage that they swap out Juneteenth as a citywide holiday for one of those other holidays, even if it's a presidential. I understand the birthday thing is, it's your birthday. I don't know. So just whatever would work for each of the unions, but if you could really please seriously consider, that is not binding language, I know that, but Mayor, what do you have thoughts?
Treasurer Markowski.
I'm sorry, I'm glad you asked that question, because I think if it's not all or nothing, I think it's going to be a real difficult task in payroll to figure out which group is taking birthdays, which group is taking Lincoln, which student. So I kind of, that's not going to be easy for payroll to monitor.
Sorry, I thought that a floating holiday, though, meant that they were just paid out, and so if it's Lincoln's birthday or Washington's birthday that they're choosing, that it doesn't really impact.
Financially, it's not
Yeah,
going to impact
yeah,
swapping,
right.
but record keeping wise, it's going to impact if you're trading. If one union group is taking a birthday and not Lincoln, and I think that it's going to be difficult to get the system to do what you want it to do.
Got you.
Mayor Dungus, did you have anything to add?
Sure, just real quick. We'll probably be sitting down internally, coming up with a draft proposal, going to the unions, so we're going to try to come from one unified point based on the data you collected, and then have the discussions after that. If it gets a little bit bound up, then we'll bring it back to the committee if we need to. Make sense? Based on your referral to me. Cool.
Very good. Any additional unfinished business? Moving on to miscellaneous motions, resolutions, and new business, Alderwoman McClure.
Thank you. It's new business, but also kind of a question for the mayor. Just want to confirm. I know that we officially declared May AAPI month, and I just want to check in. Have we officially declared June Pride Month in Rutland City? And has there been a declaration made for that? because we are having the Pride Festival on the 17th, and I believe our next meeting does fall before that. And I thought that might be...
Our next meeting's June 19th.
Is it 19th? Oh, it's a couple days off. Well, still, sentiment still stands.
I mean, during my few years on the board, we have not, but I can't speak to the entire history.
My question for the mayor, is that something you would be interested in and would support?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we can do for the next meeting, 100%. That's not a problem at all. If you want to draft one up and send it to me, that'd be great, like Alderman Taddeo. If not, I'd be happy to write it myself.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional new business? Seeing and hearing none, we have a number of executive sessions. Attorney Bloomer, can we go into all of them at once, or do we need to go in and out of each one individually?
We need to go in and out individually.
Very good, then.
So the first one would be a motion to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the negotiation of a labor relations agreement would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage because the discussion will divulge the board's position on the agreement provisions to be negotiated.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion, it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And a motion to enter into executive session with the inclusion of the mayor, treasurer, clerk, and city attorney to discuss the labor relations agreement as allowed under Title I, Section 313A1B.
Second.
So we have a motion, and it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So we're in executive session.